Okay, so guys, here's where I am at with my CA. The video crashed. So my IP settings for my CA. Are these. You can pause the video. So I've installed Active Directory Certificate Services. But I did not install Network Device Enrollment Services. So that's already installed. Now I'm at this point, launching the wizard. Again, don't choose that one because you can't configure that until you get a certificate. This wizard will create one. This is grayed out because I didn't install it. If this is installed and you go through the wizard, it's going to ask you a bunch of questions that I'm not showing you. It's not grayed out anymore. I'm creating a root CA. In reality, you use a root CA to generate a certificate signing certificate. And then you issue that to a subordinate. And you're supposed to take your root CA offline and put it in a secure location like Iron Mountain. You aren't supposed to use your root CA normally. The only time you use it is when the certificate expires for the subordinate. You bring your root CA back online, issue a new certificate for your subordinate, and from that point on, your subordinate CA should be issuing tickets. If your root certificate gets compromised, then all your certificates are compromised. So the only way to secure it is take it offline. For this lab, I'm just going to use the root CA to issue certificates. Normally, you create a root, create a subordinate, take the root offline, and you use the subordinate. When this certificate expires, you bring that back online, issue a new certificate, then take it back offline. But I'm just going to use the root CA for this lab. Again, I'm not changing anything until I get to this point. It's telling me to choose a certificate. Well, my certificate server isn't running, so I can't choose a certificate, so I'll choose it later. When I walk through the wizard, it'll automatically find the certificate the next time I walk through the wizard. I'm going to configure it. I just want to make sure I'm recording. I am. So my certificate service is set up. Now it's going to say, wait a second, one of those roles that you have installed is configured. Would you like to go through the wizard again? Click yes. Now I'm able to choose this item without getting an error. Not making any changes. They recommend that you create a separate user account, a special service account, and make them a member of this group, and use that to run this CA. I'm just going to use the built-in one. Now I have a certificate I can choose. I don't have to say choose it later. Choose that certificate. Click close. So the next thing you have to do is create some templates. So I'm going to choose my CA. Every certificate that you issued is going to be structured differently. So if you issue a certificate for a user, it's going to look different than a certificate for a computer account. There's no way as admins we know the structure of every certificate. So Microsoft has some templates here that pretty much define all types of certificates. And we need to define which ones we want to issue in our organization. And that would depend on what your organization needs certificates for. They could be used to secure sign-ons more securely than the default Kerberos certificates, or tickets rather. You might want to use certificates for your computers. You might need to do certificates for file encryption. Whatever you need a certificate for, you need to create a template for that. So I'm going to go to templates and manage my templates. So let's say we want to create a certificate for users. So I'm going to never change the certificates, the templates. Copy them to make a change to the copy. So I'm going to duplicate the certificate. Then under the General tab, I'm going to put my domain name in uppercase. Because when I look at this list, if it's alphabetized. If you put your domain name first, all your certificates will all be close together. That's the only reason why I do this. So you need to visit 3 tabs. The General tab to change the name and make sure publish certificate in Active Directory is there. Is checked. So these certificates will be for 1 year. Then I'm going to go to the subject name. Most certificates include an email address. The only problem, we don't have an email address in our Active Directory because we never set up an email server. So if you try to generate a certificate with the email address and your directory services doesn't have an email address, it'll generate an error. So just because we don't have an email address, I'm unchecking these 2 boxes.
Check email name and
This and this. Include email name in the subject name and include the email name. Uncheck both of those. For any user type certificate, you have to uncheck those. Computer certificates don't have that. But for user accounts, uncheck them because our organization doesn't have an email server. Then lastly, under the Security tab, for authenticated users, enroll and auto-enroll. We want them to get certificates automatically. Meaning when you sign in, any certificate you're eligible for, automatically grab them. So I'm going to do one for domain admins. Actually, one for administrators. Duplicate the certificate, go to the General tab. Make sure it's checked, publish in Active Directory. 3 tabs, General, subject name, security. So General, now I'm going to subject name, uncheck these 2 items. Security, authenticated users, enroll and auto-enroll. Let's do one for domain controllers. Duplicate it. Contoso. These aren't checked because this type of certificate isn't used for users. So never had it checked. Security. The only one who should get this certificate is domain controllers. So for domain controllers, I'm going to enroll and auto-enroll. I don't want all users to grab a domain controller certificate. Click OK. So you would choose whatever certificate your organization has. Let's do another one, workstation. Duplicate the certificate, General, publish in Active Directory. Subject name, that's already unchecked. Security. For this, I'm just going to you can do it for domain computers, enroll and auto-enroll. We're going to have a web server on our organization. So I'm going to duplicate that. In the General tab, Contoso, publish in Active Directory. Subject name field. This one is different. All other certificates can auto-enroll. This one can't auto-enroll because you have to supply the domain name and all the information about that web certificate. So instead of having it automatically done, it's going to request certain information when you request a certificate. So this is normal. So it's not going to it will auto-enroll once you supply that additional information. So general, change that, make sure it's checked in publishing a certificate in Active Directory. Subject name field, it's different than all others because it's a web certificate. Under security, guys, I really should put my web servers in here. You know, I should will only do that for my web servers. But for right now, just to speed things up, I'm going to do authenticated users. And authenticated users is a dynamic group. Any object that signs in is an authenticated user. If it's a computer object or a user object, if it signs in successfully, it'll dynamically be added to that group. When it signs out, it's dynamically removed from that group. So that is anyone who's currently signed in or any computer that is currently signed in. Click OK. So guys, do you remember I talked about the online responder? It's going to issue the revocation list of any certificates that it revoked. No one's going to trust my revocation list if I don't sign it. So this is a certificate to sign the revocation list of any certificates that I revoked. Once a day, I'll reissue a new revocation list and I'll sign that list. I need this certificate to sign that list. Without this one, you can't really set up, your CA will never pass out certificates. So this needs to be up and running before anything else gets done. So I'm going to duplicate this. Again, General tab. Publish in Active Directory. This certificate only lasts 2 weeks. Then it'll automatically get a new one. Subject name field. Everything it looks good here. Security. The only entity that should have this certificate is my CA itself. So I'm going to add, for object type, computers, CS01-CA $. Click OK. That machine should enroll and auto-enroll. Click OK. So I've created some certificate templates. I'm going to close out of this template console. Now I'm going to grab those templates and start offering certificates for them. If you don't see your certificate, every glitch that you could possibly get, I'm beginning. If you don't see them, what do you need to do?
In the certificate template, it was managed.
Yes. So right click, manage, duplicate your certificates. So I'm going to reboot this machine. If you don't see your templates to issue, reboot. So now I'm going to go back to certificate templates, new certificate templates to issue. Now I see my certificates. Guys, this is why I say put them all with Contoso as a name. I have a typo there. Actually, I'm going to fix that before I start. Yeah, I can't change the name. I'm going to delete it.
You can't change it, you have to redo it again.
That was the workstation one. Duplicate it. Contoso. Publish. Subject name is fine. Security. Authenticated users. Guys, if you want another one that might be good is this Kerberos. That will make sign in a little more secure. Guys, I don't care which one you issue, you at least, at the very minimum, for this lab, you need to have web and OCSP. Because those are really the only two certificates I'm going to use right now. Guys, you can't make a change to the certificates. Once you've generated it, the only thing you can do at that point is delete it from here, go delete the template, duplicate the template, and start over. So now I'm going to issue these templates. So when a user or computer signs in, they'll grab the appropriate template that they need. They'll know what they need. A user is not going to be able to grab a web certificate because it won't know how to use that structure, that web certificate. Here's the problem, guys. No one knows that my certificate server is here yet. So I need to create group policies that tell my domain that I have a certificate server and who it is. So I'm going to go over to DC1. Tools, Group Policy Management. Under Group Policy Objects, I'm going to create a new one called Certificates. Edit it. So I have user objects, computer objects. I want to tell both computers and users I have a certificate. So I'm going to go to Policies, Windows Settings, Security Settings, highlight Public Key Policy. These are the three things I need to configure. Certificate enrollment. Enable that. Search an Active Directory for the certificate server. That's what I'm saying. Credential roaming. Normally, if I create a certificate, if all these machines are joined to the domain, and I sign in that machine, and I create a certificate, it's only going to be good in that machine for my user account. It'll be saved locally. So when I go here, it won't find the certificate that I've already created. So what you want to do is put your certificates in Active Directory. So when you sign into the new machine, it'll be able to find your certificate. Don't store them locally, store them in Active Directory. If you're using roaming profiles, then you don't need to do this because you'll store it in your profile and your profile will follow you. But in this case, we don't have roaming profiles, so I'm just going to enable that. Click OK. It's saying if you have roaming profiles, you might want to exclude this. The last one is auto enrollment. yes, we want to auto enroll, we want to auto renew, and we want to update as well. If I change the certificate template, which I just showed you how to create, if I make a change, at that point I want you to go grab a new certificate automatically. Not only do I want you to get a new certificate, but if yours expires, again, go to the CA, grab a new certificate. Click OK. Guys, you don't want to be manually passing out certificates. Every time a new user signs in or something, you don't want to have to manually generate that certificate. The auto enroll part is important. So I'm going to do the same thing for computer accounts. Public key policies, these are the three I need. Go to properties. Do I want to enroll? Yes. Look in Active Directory, find the server. All I'm doing here is telling you to trust my certificate server. That's all I'm really doing. I'm saying my certificate server is going to issue certificates. Look at the path of the certificate. If I was the one who issued that certificate, then you need to trust that certificate as well. And we're going to add all these certificates. If I go into Internet Explorer, go to Settings, go to Internet Options, go to Content, Certificates. I want to put my CA as a trusted root. That's what it's going to do. It's going to take all my root CA, my root certificate, and put it in all my machines. So it'll be listed here eventually, once it gets my group policy. That's what this group policy is going to do. And lastly, we want to auto enroll. Automatically go grab the certificate you're entitled to, automatically renew, and if the template changes, generate a new certificate for the new template.
So you're not actually changing anything on the settings on Explorer, you're just seeing the difference.
Right, and once it gets a policy, we'll see CA 01-CA as one of those certificates, root. Guys, we get these from Windows updates. When there's a new certificate, Windows Update gives us new updates for public CAs. Our group policy will update the one for our CA. So, public key policies for users, then public key policies for computers. 3 settings for both. Once you have it done, look at this, guys. I can apply that policy to this domain. But I only see one domain here. So if I right-click domains and say show domains, I can also see the child domain. How many sites do I see? None. Show sites. So I could link this policy to the West site. If I link the policy to the West site, I don't care what domain you're part of. If you're on the West site, you'll get that policy. Same with the East site. Or I can do it if you're in the child domain or the parent domain, I can link this policy. So guys, instead of recreating that group policy for each domain, I created it on my parent domain. I can highlight my child domain, link an existing GPO, and say, look in the parent domain for that GPO. So I don't have to create the GPO twice. I can just create it on one domain. Then when I go to the other domain, link it there, link it from the original domain where I created it.
So you want to link it to the child domains.
Right. I want my child domain and my parent domain to use the same CA.
Do you want to link it to the east-west?
It's a philosophy. You can either do it per domain or per site. So now listen, if I had two web servers, one on the east, one on the west, I would go this method. I would say, for everyone on the east site, this is your default web page, it'll send you to that web server. If you're on this site, I want to change it to point to the web server on your side. But this, I just would do it over the domain. So you kind of have to understand what that policy is doing and what would be a better way to do it. If you're going to have something point to a server, then, or a particular site, I would go this method. But in this case, I just did it on the domain. What command do we run? Guys, if I run this command on my DC, that doesn't mean the other machines are going to update their GPOs. Just because I create a new GPO on this DC, that doesn't mean that it's downloaded that GPO and applied it to that machine. So you even need to run this on the DC. I'm going to do this on the CA.
Do you want to do it on other DCs?
I do. I don't need them right now, so I'm not really concerned, but eventually they'll automatically update the policy. If you do a reboot, that'll have the same effect. Guys, I'm gonna shut this machine down and turn it back on just so I request all my certificates that I need. I'm gonna reboot it just to request the certificates.
Is T0R?
T0 is when do you want to shut it down in 0 seconds? R to reboot, S to shut down. R to reboot, S to shut down. Or the PowerShell command, stop computer or restart computer. Now I should have a bunch of certificates. Because when this computer booted up, it automatically grabbed the certificates it needed. When I sign in as the domain admin, it'll grab the certificates that it needs. There's all the certificates I have so far. Guys, I can't go on to the next step until I have that certificate. The OCSP, the Online Responder Certificate. So to configure the Online Responder, I need a certificate. That's why I rebooted, so I had that certificate. Guys, if you didn't do the auto enroll stuff in the group policy and also check that box in security, every time a certificate is issued, you have to, or is requested, I have to go in here, right click it and approve it manually. Very labor intensive. We don't need to do that. Right now I have no revoked certificates. So the last step, look guys, even DC5 already got some. If you just keep coming in here and refreshing, over time more and more will happen. So look, my parent domain and my child domain are getting certificates. So what I need to do next, and lastly, is configure this online responder. It's really simple if you have a certificate. So I'm going to go to revocation configuration. Add a revocation configuration. Click next. This is for Contoso Inc., whatever. It's just a name. We're going to select an existing enterprise CA that we're going to work with. Browse, choose your CA. It automatically found my certificate. I could automatically enroll, but I think it's easier just to do the template and everything like that and just reboot, and it should grab it automatically. If it doesn't grab it, there's an issue. I could automatically enroll from here, but I don't really need to. If you're entitled to the certificate, and it is, it should automatically have generated that certificate.
What is the name you use for the revocation configuration?
I just use my corporate name.
Oh, okay.
Next, then finish. It's done. You don't really need to do anything with this at this point. And basically, it's going to scan your certificates. It'll do a deep scan once a week and a daily scan of not so deep of all your certificates. See if any has been revoked. If any has been revoked, it'll put them on the revocation list. So after someone verifies your certificate, they're going to, after they accept it, they're going to look in there, contact the revocation server, verify it hasn't been revoked, and then allow you in to do whatever you're going to do. So my CA is up and running. I don't really need to do anything at this point. Guys, there are some websites that you can go to manually grab certificates. So I'm going to go to my web server and look at all the sites that were created for me. That being one of them. I'm going to unblock this web server. Let me unblock my web server. My web browser. IE security enhanced, I'm just going to turn that off. Reopen up my browser. HTTPS cs01ca.contoso.com. I don't know what that's. Guys, I haven't generated a certificate for this yet, and I'm not going to. But just to show you this website. Right there, that's the name of the website. It doesn't trust my certificate. Guys, trust me, that is the name of the website. It doesn't want you to pass out certificates if you're not secure. Guys, I didn't generate a certificate for this yet. I'm not going to. But trust me when I say that. I'm going to do it again on the other web server. So I'll show you the process. But it's just a nice little web page so you can manually request your certificates. It's nothing special. But that's not the way you want to handle it. You want to automate it. Because I'm going to boot up my web server, create a website, and secure it with a certificate. While I'm waiting for that to boot, I'm going to go back here. There's my trusted root. So now it received this policy and under trusted root, my root certificate is there. So if you trust this one, that means you'll trust anyone that this one signed. So guys, before I set up a web server, I need to create some web content. So I'm just going to create a simple website. Make dir inetpub. First I need to install the web server software. I'm going to install IIS with all the default settings. When I install the web server, it's going to create another directory called inetpub, Internet Public. That's where it's going to store all the websites under an inetpub folder. Also, while I'm waiting, I'm going to show you the IP settings for the web server because it's not on the recording because it crashed. There's my IP settings.
Can you help me with this really quick?
I'm sorry?
Can you help me with this really quick?
Yeah.
I was trying to do a PowerShell, but it keeps failing, so I'm trying to do it with the wizard now. Is it used to?
Which PC is this for?
No, three.
Please. And who's your DNS point?
I think it's
0203?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
No?
Yeah, it does. Keep the next typo. Have you tried this before?
Yeah, I've done this before, but I was trying to do it with PowerShell, but it kept failing.
Have you done it graphically before?
Yeah, I've done it graphically.
I mean, has it failed?
No, I
Okay.
haven't done it
Okay.
graphically.
Okay, so it's done installing. I now have an inetpub folder. That's where you should store all your web pages. You need to assume if this server is going to be exposed to the internet, it will get hacked. So you don't want to put your website inside the Windows folder or something. So I'm going to create a subdirectory under the inetpub folder called My Site. I'm going to type clear. That's what I ran. Guys, when you use the copy command, it takes how many arguments? 2. The source and destination. Then the copy command itself. So copy from my console to a file called index.html. So everything I type between now and Control-Z will be copied into that file. This is old school Windows DOS days. Pre-Windows 95. So I'm going to hit enter. HTML. If you press enter, you can't go back. So be careful. If there's any typos, fix them now. Head. Title.
Are you doing actual HTML?
Yeah. Contoso. And my title.
Says it's offline, even though it's not.
I'm sorry?
It keeps saying it's offline, like DC1 is offline, even though it's not.
Okay, try to ping DC1 and DC2. Begin my body. And my body. And my HTML. Guys, Control Z or F6. We'll do a Control Z. That is the end of file character for Windows files.
How did you change the line? It's not entered.
I just hit enter.
I mean, changing one line for another, like.
Okay, copy con, and you have, again, that directory has to exist. I can't create a file in a folder that doesn't exist. And it needs to be called index.com. When you connect to my website, my web server is going to pass out that file. If that file doesn't exist, you'll get a weird security error, because it'll think that it doesn't have rights to the file, when in actuality the file doesn't exist. Stick to that name, index.html. Don't do contoso.html, that won't work. So, another old school command, type. If anyone knows Linux, this is equivalent to the cat command. It'll show the content of a file.
Yeah, I did ping and it works, but
Try to resolve contoso.com. If that doesn't work, and if you can resolve both names, if you can resolve contoso.com and it doesn't work, reboot DC1 and 2. Okay, so now guys, I've created some web content. It's right here. Guys, if you try to do this graphically, every time you create a file graphically, like a new file here, it automatically adds the extension txt. So that's why I have you create it on the command line, to avoid that. So this is the file I just created. It's an HTML document. It has that extension, not txt. So now I'm going to host that web content in a website. So I'm going to go to Internet Information Services. Currently I have one website right now, the default website. So I'm going to go up to my server. First thing I'm going to do is grab a certificate. Go into certificates, create a new domain certificate. Remember when I told you you have to supply additional data? That's why I couldn't auto-generate them. This is that additional data. Each website name is going to be different. Under common name should be the name that they type in the URL field. Whatever name they're going to get to that website, that's what that common name needs to be. Guys, which department in your organization is requesting that? I'm creating a fake department called Web Services. Up here, it says state, province, and city locale must specify official names and they cannot be abbreviated. This server will actually accept them as abbreviated, but in real life, don't do that. Make sure you spell out the full name. What CA do I want to use to generate that certificate? It automatically found it in an Active Directory. Guys, don't put www here, because it'll get too confusing. Put some nice, friendly name.
Professor, would you show the common name that you use?
www.contoso.com.
Okay.
Now it issued a certificate. There's that friendly name. That's why I don't want, it might be confusing if you have too many generated as that. So now I have a certificate. I have some web content. Now I want to put it all together. Highlight sites, add a website. I'm putting whatever, so you're not confused as thinking that needs to be the name of the name of the thing you type in the URL. Guys, that name right there is just for this list. Where's that web content at? inetpub, my site. You don't choose the file you want to host, you just choose the directory. It's automatically going to look for an index.html. I want to do it securely. The name of the site, this needs to be the name that people are going to type in the URL. I need to differentiate this from this. If they type my real computer name, they'll get this site. If they type www.contoso.com, they'll get the new site I'm creating. Guys, look at this. If you have a bunch of web certificates here, you want to distinguish them by that name, the friendly name. Click OK. So now I have two sites on this web server, the default one and the new one called whatever. Guys, I need to resolve contoso.com to a website, to a name, to an IP rather. So I'm going to go to, so I don't have to wait for replication, I'm going to do ipconfig. What DNS am I pointing to? 62.4, 64.2, and 64.3. Guys, I'm just going to add it to 64.2 so I don't have to wait for it to replicate. So I'm going to go to DC3. Go to DNS. And under contoso.com, I'm going to create a new alias. www really points to CS01 www.contoso.com. Test with NS lookup. I can resolve that name to an IP. No problem. Go back to my web server and let's see if we can test our website.
Yeah, it's still not working.
Okay. I'm going to unlock my browser. If I type HTTP CS01 www.contoso.com, I'll get the default website. If I type HTTPS www.contoso.com, I'll get my secure website. Right here, if I click on the, that's a trusted certificate. Okay, that's it, guys. I'm going to stop the video. That's it as far as everything that you're gonna need for the test.